Now let's go through a step-by-step process for how you can create your sales message. I'm going to go through this really linear kind of step-by-step process, and it starts with we're going to identify the product or service that you sell. And by the way, these steps all build one on top of another. So each next step uses information that we gathered in the first step. So when you sell your service, who are you targeting with this particular sales message? And ideally, you should actually end up with more than one sales message, especially if you sell to different types of buyers. But we could just kind of start with crawl, walk, run. Crawl would be, let's just create one sales message that you can kind of use for everybody. And then when your product is provided to that type of buyer, what are the improvements that you can make? And then when you make those improvements, what pain points can go away? And then if you make those pain points go away, what questions could you ask to see if the prospect has the pain that you can fix? And then we end with just coming up with a customer example. That's the process. And again, all we're trying to do is think of a handful of bullet points in each of those steps. And again, one important thing is, since these steps build one on top of another, when you change the target, all the steps after it usually could change. And that's where you really end up with buyer persona focused sales messages. I'll talk about that more in a minute when we get to the target step. So let's just start with the product. I'm actually going to use an example here to demonstrate this process, and I often try to think of an example that everybody can relate to. So today I'm going to use an example of web design services. So everybody kind of knows what a website is. If you're a business owner, you have a website for your business most likely. If not, you know what your company has a website if you're a salesperson. So I'm going to pretend for this demonstration that I'm creating a sales message for a salesperson that sells website design services. And so just to kind of brainstorm, what would that include? Because at some point in our sales message, we need to explain, this is what I sell and this is what it includes. Website design services includes design and building websites, updating, redesign, graphic design, wireframe design, content development, updates, copywriting. So that's the product. Moving on to the next step here. If that's what we sell, who are we targeting for this sales message that we're creating? And if you look at it, you could often target different types of buyers, different size of prospect organizations, maybe different geographies, different industries. Maybe if you're selling B2B inside of a company, you could sell to different functional departments, and you could often maybe sell to different levels of an organization. When you change one of these buyer types, most likely, because if you see after this step, once we select the buyer type, we're going to talk about benefits and pain points and questions. Those could all change. If you go from selling to a manufacturing industry into healthcare, which in a past life I sold software and I could sell to both manufacturing and into hospitals, the software was exactly the same. But when I changed those buyer types, the message could be different because it's different hot buttons. And again, our goal here for this training is to create an attention-grabbing message. Now, sure, you could create one sales message that you use for both manufacturing and hospitals, and that would be a good first step for crawl. But when you're ready to walk or run and get advanced, creating a different sales message with different pain points that really connect with that buyer type is where you really begin to grab someone's attention. Just one last example on that. If you're selling to functional areas, when you go from talking to finance, maybe you could sell, let's go back to software. If I could sell software to finance and also sell that software to IT, those different organizations will have different interests and different hot buttons. So creating those different sales messages is how we get the buyers, how we improve our ability to get their attention. And this step-by-step process that I will take you through will help you to create those buyer persona type sales messages. For this demo purposes, I'm just going to use the buyer type of small businesses. But you could see here that targeting small businesses is a different sales message than maybe corporate, large corporate organizations. But now we'll move on to the next step, which is brainstorming the value that you offer. Value is basically the improvements that you can make for your buyer, the improvements that your service, if they use your service or product, that they will likely see. You could just brainstorm, maybe 3 to 5 improvements that your product or service can make. You could get more thorough with it. I'm going to give you 3 different levels of value. And again, you don't need to worry about this, but if we're talking about how to grab the prospect's attention, these 3 levels can help you to think of stuff that you might not have thought of without thinking about these 3 levels. So level 1 would be technical value, and this is how you might help your customer to improve processes, make something technically work better, more reliable. But once you deliver technical improvements, those usually work their way up to create business improvements like decreasing costs, improving operations, improving revenue. And then a lot of times you could go one step further, that when you help a business or your buyer to realize business value and technical value, that could actually help that buyer at a personal value in terms of helping them to make more money, hit bigger bonuses at the end of the year, get more time with their family because they're not having to work as much because you're automating some of their work. You don't need to worry about that, but if you want to create an attention-grabbing message, these different levels can help you to think of new stuff. I think what happens a lot of times is people get stuck in a particular area. They only think of technical improvements, or maybe they only think of business and they skip the technical. So that's just to give you some ideas. For this demo, we increase revenue that's going to be generated through their website. That's a business improvement. Make their website easier to use and navigate for their visitors. That's a technical improvement. Improve website conversions, business. Improve website traffic, might be technical. Improve how they're able to tell their story through their website. Create more leads through their website. So you don't need to remember all those. I'm just demonstrating what value looks like. And if you think about, just if we stop right here, we've already created a more attention-grabbing message, because the product selling salesperson is only going to be talking about the left column. And I get these emails every day. I sell web design. Do you need web design? Can I talk to you about redoing your website? They don't even talk about the right column. So if you just stop there, you've already created an attention-grabbing message. I'm going to just throw 3 slides with questions that you can ask yourself to help you to think of, because it can be hard to think of, well, what value do I offer? It's kind of more, I sell a commodity. Web design is a commodity. So, these are questions that help you with brainstorming. I'm not going to read these slides. You can download these slides. Here are technical value brainstorming questions. Do you improve processes, help them to save time, improve visibility? Here are business value brainstorming questions. Decrease costs, increase revenue. How do you do it? Here are personal value brainstorming questions. Okay, I'm moving on. Pain. Going back to, again, trying to get attention grabbing, we can go one step further. Instead of just thinking about a few pain points, you can think of the 3 levels of pain just like 3 levels of value. There's technical pain, business pain, personal pain. Here's a trick. If you are really successful at creating a good list of benefits and value points, you can use that list to help you to build your list of pain points, because for every benefit, there is an opposite, inversely correlated pain point that you help make go away. Here's an example. For each of these I'm just going to read the pain points, but each of these are matching up as the opposite of what's on the left. Need to generate more revenue through their website. The layout and design is confusing. Website visitors aren't converting. Need to increase website traffic. Website does not clearly tell a company story. Difficult to generate leads. 1 for 1. So it gets easier as you start going through these steps. It's easier because you can use the previous step to help you to figure out what to do next. And that's one way how, and by the way, you could start to see if we change the target, each of these steps are going to start looking different. And that's, again, how you create buyer persona focused sales messages. And creating buyer persona focused sales messages is how you create more of an attention grabbing message. Moving on to the next step, I said the best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions. So again, we can use the previous step, because what we first should come up with are pain questions. If you solve these pain points, if these are good pain points that you make go, your service makes go away or your product makes go away, you should find out, is the prospect I'm talking to, do they have these pain points? And the best way to do that is to ask them questions. So one for each, actually it's usually for each pain point, you could think of one or two questions, and I'm just going to do one for one. It's just look at that pain point and think of a way to ask to find out if someone has that. How important is it to get more revenue out of your website? How easy is it to find more information and navigate the website, improve your website, and whatnot. So now we have pain questions. There's actually one more category of questions, because these questions are very directed at, do you have these problems? But there's other questions that we could ask to find out if something's not working well, or if there's an opportunity to first to start the conversation and sell the meeting, not necessarily sell the product. And that second category of questions are questions that I call current environment questions. These are basically questions that figure out what's going on with the prospect today. What are they using today? And so what these, if you sell a car, if you sell cars, these would be the questions of, what are you driving today? What year is it? How often? How is it running? At what interval do you usually buy cars? How often do you buy cars? So those are current environment questions. For every product that's sold, there could be a unique set of current environment questions. Here are some for this demo. Do you currently have someone that makes changes to your website? Are you working with a web design agency? How happy are you with the person that does your website? When was the last time you refreshed your website? How much traffic are you currently getting through your website? And so on. So these are current environment questions. I'm going to move on to the next step, which is thinking of a name drop. So a name drop is a current or past client example. And so one thing that we could use from that we've created here so far is we brainstormed improvements when we talked about value. Well, one thing that we could look back at that and say, okay, who is a good customer where did we make some of these improvements? These could help give you some ideas of a customer to reference, or a good name drop example to think of would be someone that matches up with your target industry. So if you're creating a message for manufacturing, thinking of a manufacturing example. But anyways, here's a template that you could follow, but it's just 3 points. Basically, we worked with an accounting firm and we provided this service or product. This helped them to improve how they told the story of what they do and the services they provide through their website. So that's a technical improvement. And then the third point is a business improvement. So after only 6 months, they increased the number of leads that they were generating through their website by over 500% and increased their overall revenue by 20%. Real quick, that's just a name drop example. You can insert that in a lot of different places, and I'm going to show you where to do that next.